I want to begin this morning with a special welcome back, really, to our VCU students. The semester started last week, so ending kind of our first week of a new semester and new classes. We're glad to have you this morning in worship with us. Just so you know, my name is Russ Kerr. I'm one of the pastors on staff at the Pace Center for Campus Ministry, which this church has a covenant partnership. Part of our covenant partnership is welcoming students here to worship and welcoming students into the life of Grace and Holy Trinity, but also welcoming congregation members here at Grace and Holy Trinity into the life of the Pace Center. So we hope to see you at Pace during the week and Grace and Holy on Sundays. Now in my mid-30s, I have been to a handful of weddings and have officiated a few weddings as well. And some are very traditional, held in churches, lots of flowers and a traditional reception dinner afterwards with singing and dancing. I have been to elaborate receptions. I have been to simple basement church gathering receptions and weddings that are just the bride and groom, myself, and two witnesses. I have officiated traditional weddings, but in untraditional spaces, such as on a farm with beautiful flowers and the sun setting over the mountains on a perfect North Carolina August evening. I have attended untraditional weddings, such as the wedding that I went to at Disney World. I married a couple on the Blue Ridge Parkway with her two parents as our witnesses, and the groom's parents on FaceTime in Amsterdam. That was during COVID, so it was a very different time. I officiated a wedding in which the theme was women in country music, and I have officiated an interfaith wedding, Jewish and Christian families coming together. I have been to a wedding where everyone in the wedding party hit the dance floor in blow-up sumo suits and sunglasses. I have counted down the new year on the dance floor of my friend's wedding, and one of the last things I did in March of 2020, almost 5 years ago, was attend a wedding in the church where I was serving, looking around and wondering, will this become the next super spreader COVID event? But no matter what wedding that I have been to, no matter what weddings you have been to, or your own weddings, we as a people know how to party, and a wedding is the perfect moment for it. Our gospel lesson is from the Gospel of John, chapter 2, and in the first chapter, come and see. Come and see, says Jesus, calling the first disciples, come and see miraculous things. After being baptized by John, the beginning of chapter 2, this wedding, this joyous day, come and see when two families become one, unless you are the family in Cana that day that runs out of wine, and you are about to become the neighbors who ran out of wine at their wedding, and you will be forever known as them. And why is Jesus and his mother there? Is this his family? Distant cousins? Family friends? Taking a back seat with these unanswered questions is also the people who should be front and center in this story, the bride and the groom, but only ever mentioned briefly and the bride not mentioned at all. Ask anyone who knows little about Christianity, and they probably can't tell you the name of this story, that it's a wedding day, but they know the story of Jesus' first miracle of turning the water into wine. And while we're expecting this big reveal, this grandeur, like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat for the big reveal, Jesus should lay his hands into the water and it should miraculously flow from water to wine, to changing before our eyes. Instead, Jesus is not even near the master of the banquet or the wedding planner. Instead, Jesus is presumably off behind the wedding tent, and his first miracle or his first sign is only seen by the servants. And they must be thinking, like the rest of us, who is this guy? It is not lost to me that our gospel lesson this morning is the place where we begin, and it is the place where our earthly life ends. When we are baptized, we are done so with water. Then, like the water in the vessels, we are transformed, changed by water, and later by the wine we take at communion, when we remember together some of the last words of Jesus. This cup is my blood, sealed in the new covenant, shed for the forgiveness of sins. And here at the beginning of Jesus' ministry is something else that happens at the end also, which is abundance. Abundance. Jesus provides abundance. Imagine about 1,000 bottles worth of wine, because it's no small amount. But the details are important. The family never knowing who is responsible for turning this party around. Only the servants ever seeing what Jesus has done, and his mother knowing at least something about the miracles that he can perform, encouraging Jesus to help solve the problem. It is in this simplicity, it is in this simpleness that there is abundance. One of the concepts that we teach at the Pace Center for Campus Ministry is thinking about scarcity versus abundance mentality. So often I see in churches, in student groups, and even within myself, if you build it, they will come mentality. It freezes us into thinking that the first time we try something new, that we must do so absolutely perfectly, that every detail must be in place like no one has ever failed before us. That if we host a meal, a crafting event, or even a party or gathering in our own home, that all the details must fall together perfectly, and all 100 people that show up must each have the most amazing time. And then we have this fear that we'll always be known as the uncool kid or unpopular person if no one shows up to our party. So instead of paralyzing ourselves into this scarcity narrative, we must celebrate the abundance found in small victories. Because despite the grandness of Jesus' gesture, which it is, to him, to Jesus, it is actually quite simple. Even his tone feels quite casual before he is about to perform arguably his most memorable miracle. A simple moment instructing servants to fill jars of water becomes wine. Instead of being the wedding where there was no wine, it becomes the wedding with all of the wine. Similarly, I say to people, and as a reminder to myself in this scarcity versus abundance mentality, wow, 3 people came to your first event this week. That's amazing. So often we try to have events at Pace and no one shows up. So then the next week, 3 more people might show up. Wow, you just doubled your attendance. And here is the piece of the story that I think really complements this scarcity versus abundance mentality. It is not Jesus' idea to turn the water into the wine. It is his mother who recognizes that Jesus has a gift to be a problem solver. So often, this scarcity narrative comes from thinking that we have all the right answers. But instead, what I hope to teach to students, what I hope to remember within myself, is that in forming servant leaders and living out this servant leadership modeled by Jesus, that we engage with our communities of practice. We deeply listen, we deeply care, admitting that we don't always have the right answers, and instead to be creative problem solvers. Instead believing that our ideas might be, quote, the best ideas, but instead to be creative, working together, to create opportunities for people to be excited, to care deeply about an idea, thus creating deeper investment in communities, more sustainability in programming. As I reflected on this passage and I reflected on weddings, I had a thought. For me, attending a wedding or officiating a wedding is not the perfect wedding venue. It's not the after party or the food menu that I appreciate. While those are really nice touches and really nice details, and I have been to some really creative and really interesting ideas that my friends and family have put together at their weddings. It's the moments of simplicity that stick out the most to me. These are the moments that stick out the best. It's the tears that well up in the tenderness of inviting one of my best friends from high school to take the hand of their partner and inviting them to place the ring on their finger. It's laughing with my brother and sister-in-law as we all three nervously fumble through the elements of the liturgy. It's my friend Pastor Hillary and her husband Brad serving communion to the congregation in their wedding dress and their Sunday best suit. It's the laughing, getting ready with friends about to show up at the wrong time to the wedding because no one checked yes, you're gonna laugh at this, no one checked the paper invitation that I had in my backpack that said the wedding started at 3 p.m., not at 5 p.m. It's the moment at the end of the night when everyone is gathered around in a circle singing Wagon Wheel, hands on shoulders before we all head home. These unexpected moments are the glimpses of where we see and better understand the immeasurable joy of God, where we experience the divine mystery that connects us to one another, and a seemingly simple act of hospitality yields abundance. Let's celebrate the abundance found in simplicity.